this meeting, but they aren't here yet, and I don't know where they're at, so. But I'm not gonna sit here and wait for them all day. I probably should check on one of them, he's probably asleep. Okay, for those of you who are new or in the wrong room, this is the March Aero Club safety meeting that we have once a month. And just to repeat, for those who are new, that we have this meeting every third Tuesday of the month. There's been, you know, I've thought about changing it for several reasons, because we're in conflict with the Civil Air Patrol unit that I'm in, and half the place here is in our unit. And they've been not holding the meetings on this Tuesday night because of this meeting here, because half the unit's over here. But that's something that we'd have to discuss, because it'd have to be, by regulation, it says it's gotta be a meeting held at a time when everybody is, or not everybody, but the maximum amount of people can make it. So I might send out some kind of survey sometime in the future asking you what would be a good time for you guys that would be better for you to show for a meeting. That way, you know, we kind of get a synopsis. I mean, we may just leave it like right where it's at, or we can move it. There are some aero clubs that hold them on Saturdays. I'm not sure how they handle that, because a lot of people like to have their weekends off, unless they're out flying. So that's just something that we will have to talk about. Okay, we do have a certain agenda that we do in every meeting. We try to keep it in this same agenda, so it's no surprises. Right now, our cameraman right there is John Law, who's our chief pilot. And then, let's see, we actually had an instructor show up that's hardly ever been here, Chris Brown. And let's see, is there anybody else? We got Alan. Yeah, and you know, hey George, hey, have you guys seen Campbell?
He's out there.
Is he? Okay, so he did show up. Okay. I was getting worried, because he's the one I was worried might be went to sleep down there. So.
Might have fallen asleep.
Yeah, I know. I was worried he was going to, because he was in there in the back room. Okay, and John's gonna take the place of Bob Pierce, who's the Aero Club manager. He is not in town. He is actually at the Aero Club managers meeting. So he's there to defend us and or turn us over to them or something, whatever. He called me up yesterday, and I guess there are a lot of discussions of things that are going on with the Aero Clubs. I'm sure that when he gets back, he'll do a good report on it, and we'll find out what's going on with all the Aero Clubs. All the Aero Clubs are struggling. There are fractions out there in the Air Force who want to get rid of all the Aero Clubs for whatever reason. I have no idea why. General Curtis LeMay started Aero Clubs in 1952, and the whole point behind Aero Clubs was to not only give the non-flyers in the Air Force a chance to be able to become pilots and fly, but at those days, the pilots who came back from UPT, or undergraduate pilot training from the Air Force, ran the Aero Clubs. They used to be channeled through the Aero Club, so that they got under their belt a little bit of experience of running a flight operation. And I actually ran into one of those guys here about 2 years ago. I actually ate dinner with this guy. He used to be the Aero Club manager here at March Field in 1952. And he was the first lieutenant right out of flight training, and he was given the Aero Club, and he was in charge of the Aero Club for, I don't know, about a year or so, something like that. So Aero Clubs had a vital part of it. Up until 5 years ago, our Aero Club used to have all Air Force pilots go through the Aero Club with 20 hours, and they were called IMT students, and it was required by the Air Force. And so they all had to go through us before they went to flight training, and they were also evaluated here. And John, if he wasn't here at that time, but our chief pilot Jerry Rowles was, and he had to evaluate them and see if they were ready to go to flight training. So we had one guy that was really having a difficult time here, and he kind of suggested maybe he shouldn't go to pilot training. Well, guess what? He went to pilot training and did flunk out. So, you know, it showed here before he got there. And then in their infinite wisdom, they're now spending 10 times more money on airplanes, you know, on a contractor does it now. So, those three, anytime it costs more money, that's the direction they're going to go. Now there is a couple of things on why they did that, and all their airplanes have glass cockpits, which we don't have. So that's part of the reasoning. So anyhow, I was worried about you guys.
We got lost.
Yeah, did you? Okay. Okay, let's get with our agenda. Stop my yakking. Okay, new people. All right, I know we got a few of them. All right, let's start with you out here in the corner. Stand up, whatever, introduce yourself.
My name's Brent Johnston. I live locally here. I retired from the Marine Corps in 2012 after 20 years as a gunnery sergeant. I was a UE crew chief. That's where I caught the flight bug. And now I work for the Southern California section of the PGA of America. I'm a junior golf manager for a junior golf tour. We do over 270 events a year. We've got over 2,500 kids out there playing. So got a little bit of extra time and now more than enough money to do flight training. That's always what kept me back. So.
All right. Welcome. Okay, next. Come on. You know who you are.
Hi, Barry Davis. I've been at March since 2005. Haven't come to fly, battling me. Retired Air Force 22 years. I was an air traffic controller. That's what kind of got me interested in aviation. I figured, why tell them where to go? I might as well go out there and be one of the ones that gets told where to go. Retired from that. Got hired on here. I work at the Air Marine Operations Center, U.S. Customs on base. And I'm finally going to get back in a plane again.
All right. Welcome. Welcome to the club.
I'm Chris Lake. I retired here in March about a year ago with the 452nd Maintenance Squadron in maintenance flight, and started flying with the Aero Club back in '92, and just started flying again. So,
Welcome back.
Did
Okay,
Randy get
anybody-
you checked out from the T-34?
this week.
Okay.
All right, anybody else?
I think it's probably just me then.
Yeah.
Evening everyone, my name is William Lewis. I'm an ROTC cadet down at Detachment 002 at Cal State San Bernardino. I got flying bug when I was really young. My mom always told me, hey, it doesn't matter what you want to do in life, but make sure you go get a college education and then go and pursue your dreams that way. And I was like, okay. And so was blessed enough to get a scholarship here for flight school, and I've been trying to burn it up as quickly as I can, joining the club, and hopefully I'll get a bunch more lessons in me so that way I can improve my selection score for the pilot slot. So I look forward to it.
All right. Anybody else? Have you been to our meetings before?
No, this is my first one.
Okay, well, that includes advisors too. You stand up.
All right, I'm Tech Sergeant John Robert Borth. I was a B-52 crew chief for many years down at Barksdale. Then I became a C-17 crew chief here. Now I work at the MXGQA and I'm an A&P.
Oh, wow, okay. Hey. Yeah, definitely. B-52s, wow, that's great. Yeah, you must have been drooling with this B-52 out here, right?
That was one of my old squadron bombers.
Oh, is it really? Oh, wow. Okay, know anybody on there?
Yeah, actually the lead crew chief that brought it was one of the people that I trained. So I brought him his 5th level.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool.
Well, that's always neat. You're looking after your children, see. Nice to see them succeed. Okay, anybody else? I think, well, we got some old timers that showed up. Hi. Anybody else that's new? I don't think so. I think we did it. Okay. All right. Okay, anybody who's soloed, got their pilot rating? This includes Air Force pilots or Marine pilots too. That's any airplane, doesn't matter what. Usually, let's see. Usually we have somebody who did something. Does anybody get violated by the FAA? You know, that's also a downgrade, I guess. Well, okay, nobody. All right. Experiences. Okay, anybody got anything that's exciting to talk about? And I promise, since Bob's not here, he won't yell at you, so anybody that did anything.
Does it have to be about flying?
Well, you know, it doesn't, it should be, but no, I mean, go ahead. What is it that,
Last Saturday, I ran my first Tough Mudder. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It's a 10 to 12 mile course of obstacles, and this particular one up here in San Bernardino at Glen Helen Raceway, that was a pretty tough thing. 2 miles of continuous hills, and then you get your first obstacles, some Arctic ice dip. Everyone's cold. Then you run the rest of it, and it was an interesting experience. I definitely look forward to doing another one. So.
huh?
If anybody's ever interested, hey, look them up.
Yeah, we need some guys up here that needs exercise. Anybody else?
I stayed at the Holiday Inn again last night.
Did you? Okay. Now, you did stay at On Lodging, didn't you, over here there on the weekend? Yeah. We've got our pilots over here flew the T-34s over in during the air show. Let's see. Okay, nobody else? Alex, I know you've been flying.
I feel the Thunderbirds on Sunday. It was very interesting.
Oh, yeah? Oh, well, that's neat. Yeah. That's something to brag about. Carolyn?
I had a great time at the air show this past weekend.
Yeah.
Met a lot of nice people.
Okay. Yeah, that counts. Yeah. Because it's part of flying, it's part of the Air Force and all the, it doesn't have to be, like I said, Air Force, it could be Marines too. We allow you guys to talk too. And Navy too. The Aero Club manager for you new guys is a retired Navy captain, so, we do allow Navy in here.
I got another one.
Yeah,
I got 2.
okay, I know you do.
Yeah, I always have experience every week.
Yeah.
No, I was flying about, was it 3 weeks ago? Doing some paperwork. I look up, my first officer flew 3 miles into the Charlie airspace at Burbank Tower without calling them. So I didn't notice at the time. I'm just like writing down time. So yeah, I immediately tuned to Burbank frequency. She's like, Gulfstream so-and-so, there's an aircraft 12 o'clock, he's Nordo at the moment. And I'm just like, yeah, that's us. We're immediately exiting to the south right now. And she's like, get out of my Charlie. So, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
didn't give me the phone number, which is good. But, 9 times out of 10, if you do get the phone number, it's just they want to explain it from their side of the situation. So they're not trying to violate you, but
Yeah, well.
no, they can if they really want to. But
Yes, they could.
let's see, the other day in the Santa Anas, I hit some severe turbulence in the King Air. That was fun.
Okay.
So learned, hold your airspeed.
Yeah.
Don't
Almost
worry,
definitely.
heck with the altitude. Airspeed's
Yes,
way more important.
yeah,
So, good experiences, good learning experiences.
yeah, that is. Yeah, you learn that you talk to people too, so,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, anybody else? George? Nothing? Okay. All right. Okay, we're gonna talk to the Aero Club chief pilot, or he's gonna talk to us. And then we're gonna go into real quick, what we do is we just kind of cover the SOPs over a period of time. We cover paragraph by paragraph. Just real quick. It's not meant to be anything in depth, it's just a thing where we just go over it real quick. And then tonight we're gonna talk about risk management. For you guys who are Civil Air Patrol, there is one slide in here that has the wrong terminology for Civil Air Patrol, and don't jump on me because of that. It's not crew resource management anymore. It's called, what is it? I forgot myself. I can't even remember. It's CRM though. It still is CRM.
Who's that young guy?
Hey, that's, man, I'm telling you, I don't know. I just found this picture someplace and it was just, it sort of looks like you there, John.
I don't have anything specific to say to you guys, except we do on occasion have people that forget they need an annual check ride. They need to do their annual test. When they do that, that test includes the test on the SOPs. Some people forget that too, just do that standardization test. So that's all I have to say. Any questions on that? Thank you.
All right. You mean you're not going to talk like Bob?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Still got 20 minutes.
That's a stunning picture.
That's,
Really good.
it is a good picture. That's when he graduated from the academy, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an excellent picture, actually. I don't think I've seen any of the newer ones like that with anybody. Oh, see, this, remember I told you guys about that? Yeah, this unit down here will shut itself off automatically. Okay, it'll take a couple of seconds for it to come up. Okay, we're going to cover SOPs real quick. This paragraph right now is starting chapter 3, and it's called Operational Restrictions and Local Area Procedures, and it's just basically, you know, for those of you who are licensed pilots, of course, you know you got to take the standardization exam every year, and in that standardization exam is the SOP test also, which covers this stuff. And it's for obvious reasons. It's local procedures, and local procedures are a little bit different at each different base. The actual standard exam that you take means exactly what it says. It's the exact same exam that every Aero Club around the entire world takes, including Yokota, Japan. So on this here, it covers what is in other words, it's out of AFI 34117, which is our operations or our regulation, and also FAA regulations and the SOP. The only one I got on here right now, which is the bottom paragraph, which is paragraph 3.2, is aircraft pre-flights, and of course, pilots will perform a thorough pre-flight in accordance with required checklists. Pilots will also check aircraft 781A forms, Aero Club Aircraft Dispatch Program, which is the FTP program that you check the airplanes out with, and what you got checked out today in, and aircraft progressive inspection charts prior to flight. Pretty self-explanatory, but it is something that's in the regulation because not so much here, so far as I know, unless you're doing it behind somebody's back. So far as I know, nobody here, does not do a pre-flight. I have seen it on the outside though, and I also know one person who died because of it. Never bothered. He didn't believe in pre-flights, and it finally caught up to him one day when his whole tail section fell off the airplane on takeoff, and It just went right into the ground. So, okay, next time we'll cover, paragraphs 3.3 and so forth. Any questions? Okay, risk management. This was an aircraft crash that took place with the T-34s. The results, the reason why it happened was because I don't remember precisely, I just know that the guy who's up the higher airplane was coming in on a landing, and he landed behind the first airplane there. And basically he wasn't watching, who was on the runway, who was in front of him, and that type of thing. It was a pretty spectacular crash. Believe it or not, the guy in the airplane that's nosing down did survive. The airplane did not go all the way over. It actually slid on its nose like that and stopped. Of course, the guy in the plane that went upside down, he was killed. It just went right in, into the ground upside down. This was several years ago now. It's been a while. But it did hit the news in the aviation world because of what the circumstances that took place on it. Okay. In professional aviation, for the most part, almost everybody in professional aviation has some kind of a risk management system. The Air Force definitely did. Whenever I flew, we would meet back here in the back corner room here in this building, and there was a CRM checklist that we would go through. In theory, if the numbers got too high in terms of the risk, we were supposed to call up the ops group commander and tell him that we can't fly. The whole time I flew for the Air Force, I don't think I ever saw that really happen, except in certain circumstances, like in Iraq and a couple places. Back in Desert Storm, there was a couple of times where we didn't fly out of Saudi Arabia. But the whole idea behind these things is to make sure that everything is measurable. That's the key factor. In theory, we can sit there and go out to the airplane and fly, but the Air Force and also the airlines and many of the other professional organizations try to put it into a measurable way of being able to say, okay, this is an unsafe flight. In general aviation, we typically don't do that. And that's, because general aviation is people that just have an airplane or rents airplanes and go out and fly. They don't necessarily have that type of system. You guys know what's going on with my computer. I can't read half of it. Poor decision making is a root cause of many, if not most, aviation accidents. That's something that is, that's a true statement. Good decision making, on the other hand, is about avoiding circumstances that lead to really tough choices. The goal is really very simple. Learn to make good choices every time you fly. These are situations where somebody did not make a good decision. This was in 1959. It's a beach bonanza. One pilot, not IFR rated, 3 passengers. It was nighttime, weather, cold, and deteriorating. At that time, Civil Aeronautics Board came out and said pilot's unwise decision to fly in a situation that necessitated instrument flying when the pilot was not rated as an IFR pilot. Somebody made a bad decision. Does anybody know who this is?
Bobby Holly.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper Richardson. And some people say that "Bye Bye Miss American Pie" song was about this accident, the day the music died. And that's what somebody, doesn't mean that's what it really was, but that is what they say. Okay, second story, July 1999, Piper Saratoga. One pilot, not IFR rated, 2 passengers. It was a night, weather, haze and fog, over water. MTSB, pilot's failure to maintain control of his airplane during descent over water at night. You might, Kennedy, yes, yeah. I actually, I was there, not when the accident took place, but sometime later. That I happened to be there with the Air Force. We were doing Thunderbird support with Voight Air Force Base, and we went out on a boat out in that same area, not because of this accident. We were out there to go to the island out there, and Martha's Vineyard, but the fog came in that day, and you know, it's just like, wow, you know, and that's, and it was like, wow, I can't believe it, you know. I mean, now this was daytime and you couldn't see anything, you know, and so it was just kind of eerie being there. As usual, most of you know this, I know I talk about it all the time here, is that just because you are in compliance with the regulation does not mean that you're safe whatsoever. You know, like some of you, you know, fly once every 85 days. But on the same token, it's just like I tell some of the new people that come into the Aero Club who are trying to get their private. You have those who can get their private really quick because it's almost like as if they were born with an airplane in their pocket. And then you've got those others who really have to struggle. And I find that after flying in the Air Force, there's those people who you know, you get in the airplane, it was as if they had never walked away from it. You know, I mean, they've been there, you know, it could be as much as 90 days there and it's no problem. But I've had other people that would fly the airplane in less than a day, the very next day, and they acted like as if they hadn't seen an airplane before. John, you probably have you want to name off the students that are like, oh, okay. Disavow any knowledge of that. Okay.
I appreciate that, John.
Yeah. Sense of common sense. There's a thinking process to flying. There is, you know, and so many human factors get into this, and it's just amazing because, you know, we all think that we'll never do anything that would lead to something like this, but then again, we could. And it's that thinking process of all the different factors that come into the picture that causes us to do something that's really dumb or do something that's really smart. This individual here, he was a member of the club who this is up in New Mexico, and he was flying along cross country with 3-5 Foxtrot. And he, you know, looked at the winds. Well, the winds out there are blowing pretty good. There were like, you know, they were not too bad, 15, gusting to 35. But they were straight down the runway. And his thought was, well, I'm not going to have a problem, you know, taking off in that. You know, that's coming straight down the runway. The thing is he forgot that he has to get to the runway in order to take off down that runway. And as he was taxiing down to the other end of that runway, as he turned to get onto the runway, well, guess which wing is sitting there facing right into the wind? Well, as he's turning to turn onto the runway, that wind got underneath that right wing, and it started flying. It started going up like this. The one thing that he did, I thought was the biggest mistake of all, was the fact that he hit his brakes instead of hitting the throttle. Probably, obviously you can, you just, you take an educated guess as a pilot, but he probably, the plane would have weather vaned into the wind if he had hit his throttle, and it probably, everything would have been fine. But he hit his brakes. And of course, being a tricycle gear, it just went over on that side. The good thing about that is that he took all these pictures. He must have taken about 20 pictures of it before, the airport people got out there. And that's what saved him with the FAA. The FAA didn't even bother to come out and look at it because they just looked at the pictures and went, okay, we see what happened, And they didn't even classify it as an accident or anything. But it still cost us a fair amount of money. We had to put a new engine in, and the left wing tip, of course, had to be replaced. He didn't think it through. That's one of the things about making a CRM checklist. Okay, what are your risks? What are the risks you're willing to take to fly? In other words, basically, the risk? Do the risk outweigh the flight, or vice versa? Has to do with a lot to do with how important the flight is. If the Air Force, we used to do a lot of flights that probably were very high risk, but it would necessitated us to go. Chris, you guys don't do any kind of CRM, you guys just go, right?
For the King Air job? Or
Yeah, for the King
Yeah,
Air.
we've got a risk assessment we fill out before we
You
fly.
do, okay?
And then we got CRM procedures too, as well as takeoff briefs,
Yeah.
briefs, stuff like that.
Okay,
So it's a crew environment.
yeah. How important is it to have the airplanes fly? I mean, is it really high priority, or is it some kind of or can you,
That's a good question. I would say it's somewhat high priority,
yeah,
but it's what it comes up to is really the captain who's flying, and
Yeah.
what kind of experience they have. If it's a brand new captain,
yeah,
we've had some people that, some captains that have just said, I'm not comfortable going out today, and the operation, luckily they've been doing it for 25 years, so they're aware that the weather gets bad,
Yeah.
it's windy, and there's,
yeah,
they're okay with that. So
Yeah.
it's good to have a customer that's
Yeah.
relaxed about, limitations.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Now, like this air show, Malcolm, you guys flew, but the winds were blowing pretty good out there.
Well, I'd say 40 miles an hour is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. But see,
Nice gusts.
but you had a lot of experience too. I mean, you guys, George, all you guys, you've flown a lot, these airplanes, so, you kind of had an idea about where your limitations were.
Everybody else was flying, and even some of the little ones went up, so.
Yeah,
But we went first.
What?
yeah, you guys went first. Yeah,
Say that again, George?
yeah,
That's true.
you guys were first, yeah, yeah. So, how important was it to get that airplane up there and do the show?
It wasn't.
Well, it really wasn't, no. But then again, the wing commander wanted this Aero Club to have those airplanes up there. And he
Peer
felt,
pressure, which is dangerous.
yeah,
Really dangerous.
yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing. I mean, that's one of the things that this whole, outside pressure. You've got those things that happen all the time. I know that we've had guys who flew in the Air Force when they should not have, but everything came out okay. But
Randy was the lead pilot, and the three of us have gotten a fair amount of experience flying together, and we discussed it before the takeoff. Not in great detail, just said, keep your head out, safety first,
yeah,
widen it out a little bit, no big deal, and just keep your head up. And
Yeah.
everything worked out fine. Fortunately for us, the wind was down the runway. It wasn't like a 15-knot crosswind. So that wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But up there, it was very difficult to hold it. And you could watch the other ones, the smoke trails.
Right.
The planes that had smoke were just bouncing all over the place. So, but anyway, we discussed it ahead of time.
You guys flew formation, okay? What about those other airplanes up there, the single ones? They didn't fly formation. For them, I don't think was it as critical for them, or was it less critical? Because they were up there by themselves. You guys were flying formation.
Well, they were spread out. So
Yeah.
it was a non-issue, really.
Yeah,
Except when you're landing, of course.
yeah. The you know, the risk factor involved with all this is what is it are you doing? And just like with Malcolm here, they're flying formation. That kind of bumps up the risk factor some compared to the one airplane that was up there doing acrobats. Now he had a risk factor too, because their risk factor is that he's doing acrobats and diving towards the ground and doing loops and doing all that stuff. But then again, flying formation is another kind of a risk. So, most of us in this room right here probably would have never done anything like that, what the guys did at the air show. At our level, our experience level. But except for John. John, I'm sure, would have. But you know that Malcolm did, and several people did. Okay. On this one here, I got, here's a few risks that pilots may take. And of course, what we were just talking about, I got outside pressure. You got get there, the airplane is on the schedule for tomorrow, and Roger may charge me if I don't get it back. Those are the guys that are on cross country. Everybody else flies there. What will everyone think if I don't go there? We have had this when we've had, and we're trying to do it. We try to do it during the summertime where we do a flyaway weekend where we go someplace and land, eat breakfast or lunch. It's a lot of fun, and it really is kind of a neat thing to do. But we did fly up to Apple Valley one time, and the Apple Valley had some pretty good winds up there. And the funny thing about it is that the lady that I was flying with, I was in the right seat. I just rolled along. And she didn't want to not land because, she was a relatively new pilot, just had her license. But she didn't want to not go, She didn't want to land and because she wanted to eat. So that was kind of like an outside pressure. Fortunately, I was there, and I ended up having to land the airplane for her because she tried a couple of attempts to land and she couldn't get the plane down. Apple Valley is kind of a very squirrely place. It can have winds blowing opposite direction on the ends of the runway. So, yeah.
The thing, the Air Boss, I think George would agree with me. The Air Boss did a fantastic job of talking to people, getting you set up, and making you aware of things. And he said one thing, he says, if you haven't done it before, don't do it today the first time. Which is perfectly analogous with a new student.
Yeah.
Or somebody hasn't done it.
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable, or you haven't done that before, don't do it now.
Right. Exactly.
So I thought it was, I've never heard it before stated like that, so I just thought
Yeah.
I'd share it.
Yeah. That's neat that he did that too. Because the attitude of whoever you're working for or flying with or whoever you're doing it, like even with the club, even though this is just a club and we're flying is for fun, there can be that pressure, that peer pressure. And I had a good friend of mine who flew for Ameriflight, who flies checks and stuff like that, and he flew Learjets. And there was a string of thunderstorms across the whole United States. And he was not going to go. But the guy who was his boss came down and said, well, you're fired unless you go. So he went ahead and went. Now he made it, but guess what? As soon as the president of the company found out that this guy told him he was going to be fired, he got fired. So it was like, okay, no, you don't play that type of a game. Okay, I've done this before. That's an internal pressure. You know, you've landed at this place a million times, and why can't I not land now? The guy, the case in point, was a video that I showed here about 2-3 years ago on a guy who was flying density altitude in Colorado. He landed on a runway that was 9,000 feet up. No problem. Took off, had no problem. About a year later, he landed on a runway that was much lower, only 5,000 feet, and he almost died. And he couldn't figure out what happened here. Well, what happened here was the fact that when he landed on that 9,000 foot, the runway was 9,000 feet high, the temperature was like 15 degrees. And when he tried to land on the one that was 5,000 feet elevation, it was like 100 and something odd degrees. And, you know, so, you know, he didn't even take that into consideration. He just said, well, gosh, if I could land on that one up there, it's 9,000 feet, I should be able to do this. And it was like, really? You know, it's like, I wonder where he got his training. And of course, your instructor, John Law, says, don't worry about the winds. Now you can I can show you how to land an 80-mile-an-hour winds. I don't think John will ever really, truly do that.
Well, the airplane only goes 75 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, so you could just sit there. You won't even have to leave the parking spot. Okay. Let's see. Okay, there's a couple of things that can be done. You got risk management handbook. You've got the FAA 8083-2. That's it gives you all the tools to be able to, as a general aviation pilot, to kind of help you get through this stuff. It is a good tool. It's charts or whatever you can use. But one of the ones that they do use that we can use, and that's let's see, let me move ahead, is what they call the PAVE method, and what it is that's the pilot, it's aircraft, environment, external pressures. And then, of course, you got many of you that's flown any length of time, I'm safe method, of course. That's illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, and emotion. That one there, I'm safe, is usually something you do before you fly. The PAVE method can be done at any time, including after you take off. And so it usually goes in that order. I'm safe first, and then the PAVE method next. What I'm going to do, let's see where I'm at here. Let's see. Yeah, this is just a quick explanation of it. You got the pilot illness, which of course you can use your I'm safe thing. Use of medication, stress, fatigue, lack of currency, have not flown for several weeks, and that type of stuff. The environment is unfamiliar with the airplane. That's a biggie. A lot of plane crashes because the person was not familiar with the airplane. That, by the way, also happens in the military and in the commercial airlines. There has been many times I've read reports while I was flying for the Air Force where the pilot just transitioned from a B-52 to a 141 and when the emergency took place, reached for the wrong switch. And it does happen. Unfamiliar with the aircraft, unfamiliar with the avionics. You guys that are learning how to fly is in a round dials or steam gauges. Someday you'll probably end up in an airplane that's a glass cockpit. One of the things that the president of AOPA said, that every time he flies an airplane that's more advanced, he turns everything off except for the instruments that are needed. And then he starts adding them over a period of time. That's a very wise decision. unfamiliar airports. That's the environment. Airspace, different terrain. When you're flying cross country, especially in a place you've never been to, all that. And then, of course, external pressures, which must meet deadlines, pressures from passengers, and so forth. How many here think that a passenger brief is important? Yeah,
I mean, think of passengers, what?
is important. Having a passenger brief as being important. Yeah, it's vital. As a matter of fact, AOPA and FAA spends a lot of time on passenger briefings that you can get. So that you don't miss anything. It's an actual checklist, making sure you cover everything. Okay, I'm going to skip over this stuff. This is just a whole bunch of stuff of all the different things that can take place. What I'm going to do real quick, okay, there's actually 3 scenarios here, but I'm only going to cover like a couple of them. These are things that this is right out of the 8083-2. These are scenarios that they give to kind of give you an idea of, just as a scenario, what you might be looking at in CRM. When you use this stuff, think of that vernaculism that we just talked about, and what you think you might do in this situation. Let's see, can you read all the way at the top? Yeah. BFR scenario number 1, you are a 32-year-old, 325-hour non-instrument rated private pilot. You have about 75 hours on long cross-country flights, including one less than 3 weeks ago. You and your wife are planning to leave after work for a 400 nautical mile flight to attend your wife's best friend's 11 a.m. wedding the next day. You will take off about 30 minutes before sunset. The current weather is good, and the forecast calls for clear skies, good visibility, and negligible wind en route at your destination. You have planned to cruise at 9,500 feet because about 250 miles of the route is over rugged terrain and few airports also. That goes up to 7,500 feet. Your aircraft is typical general aviation, single engine, 160 horsepower, 600-mile range. No oxygen is available. You have decided that the combination of fatigue, rough terrain, and night makes this flight, as originally planned, undesirable. Which of the potential solutions below would best manage the risk of this trip? A. Rearrange your work schedule to leave early and land in daylight. B. Get an airline reservation for your wife and delay your departure until tomorrow morning. C. Postpone the trip until tomorrow morning. Which one would you pick? Well,
I would say A, for me.
okay.
For me, I'd say A.
For you, you say A, okay. Rearrange your work schedule to leave early and land at daylight, okay. Who else?
B, I don't want to go to that wedding anyway.
Get an airline, yeah, yeah.
Is it your wife's friend's wedding or?
It's your wife's best friend wedding.
Yeah, your wife's,
D, don't go.
D, don't go. Okay. Anybody want C?
Get your wife to
Well,
I don't like C because then if you wake up in the morning and the weather's bad or something like that, then you can be pushing to go, so it can be even worse than you are in the beginning.
okay. That's good foresight on that. Okay. Well, let's see. Rearranging your work schedule to leave early. This is the official answers and explanations. Leaving early to land in daylight reduces the performance level risk from fatigue and eliminates the night risk factor. That's in A. B, get an airline reservation for your wife and delay your departure until tomorrow morning. If you put your wife on an airline flight so she can be sure to make the wedding, you will reduce the pressure also. C, postponing the trip until tomorrow morning reduces the performance level risk from fatigue and eliminates night risk faster, but leaves no other option for making the wedding on time. So that's kind of like what you were saying, Kevin, in a way. You're vulnerable to pressures to complete the flight even if other risk factors such as weather go above normal. That's exactly what you said there. And so it doesn't really give you what is the right answer, but it does give you an idea of what's going on. Let's see. Let me go to the third one. And I think it starts right down at the bottom. I have to look for it. There. Scenario 3. It's right down at the bottom. If you can read it, for those of you who can read that part of it. You are a 350-hour non-instrument private pilot, and you are 3 hours into a 4-hour VFR cross-country. There is a stronger headwind than forecast, and while you left with 5 hours of fuel, you think you are seeing a higher than normal fuel burn. You're tired, you're hungry, and your wife has mentioned, your wife has mentioned a need for a bathroom. And she is not about to use one of those plastic things you carry in your flight bag. The weather at your destination is still VFR, but the temperature and the dew point are closing as darkness falls. Your destination airport lies on the eastern edge of a very large lake, and the winds are from the west. You are thinking through the consequences of these issues and go back to your PAVE checklist: pilot, aircraft, environment, external pressures. Based on this information and considering a PAVE risk factor categories, what are marginal? Should you continue on your destination or should you land at a suitable airport? What would you do? What'd you say? What'd you say?
I said, unlatch the door, bank right.
Gee whiz, Kevin. Does your wife even know? Okay. Scenario number 3, what they say. Pilot, you are hungry, fatigued, feeling stress, and your wife's discomfort. These make the pilot risk category marginal. Aircraft number B, aircraft you originally planned a 1-hour fuel reserve, 5 hours, and planned on a 4-hour trip, but the headwinds are stronger than forecast, so your fuel burn is higher than normal. Since you will no longer have a 1-hour fuel reserve you planned, the aircraft risk category is marginal. And then C, environment, the airport location on the downwind side of a large lake and closing temperatures of dew point and temperature spread makes it likely that fog will form, and this makes the environment category marginal. Basically, it's a no-go situation is what that is. But anyhow, okay, so that's kind of like, these are just little scenarios that they go through. If you want to be, if you're interested in looking at this stuff, AOPA does have a risk management program that actually you go into, and it puts you through several of these kind of scenarios. And it does make you think, because what the whole idea is it's not black and white. It can be a very, very difficult decision-making situation, and that's what these little things that AOPA does do. It will make you think through. And it's called Flight Risk Evaluator. And it's a program that puts you through a bunch of different scenarios, and it has you click on what you want as your answer and what you would do in those situations. And believe me, it's not like taking a test. It makes you go through all these very, very difficult areas. Then, like these scenarios here, these scenarios are actually pretty, light compared to what some of the ones they give on AOPA's page. I do have the site's name here if you want to get it. I was going to try to go on to it with this computer, but the Air Force computers are not real friendly to just about anything, including, Flight Schedule Pro. Is there any questions? Okay. We are looking into making this meeting into a wings program where we can do that, and we're going to try to see if that's, because it's something that I've been wanting to have happen for a long time. And it looks like it might be feasible. And with the help of Martindale, he's going to help out a little bit on that. And we'll try to get it. Any questions, any other stuff? Don't forget to sign the sheet. Did you want to say anything?
Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
I will say one thing, yeah.
Perhaps I should share with the craft. I had the opportunity to be a mentor for a couple of student pilots at one of my airports. And I want to speak briefly about attitude. I went out this morning, and this guy has at least 5 or 6 hours. And he was checking the airplane. I said, hey, Mike, not his real name. What are you doing? I'm doing a pre-flight. I said, where's your checklist? I don't need no checklist. I can remember all this stuff. I said, where's your instructor? So, well, he's over in the office. But that's just one example.
Huh.
And their radio communications are terrible. And the instructor, I know this would never happen at this club, but it's just an attitude. And another attitude thing was some of the pilots at French Valley. I was coming in from the south a couple of weeks ago, and I made my announcement. I usually pop over the hill south of the airport there around the Pachanga, and I made my announcement. And I heard the Duchess over Lake Skinner make his announcement. He said he was going to join the left base for runway 18. And I was established on the downwind, almost to the numbers, and I look up, here's this Duchess coming at me. He decided he wasn't going to go all the way to turn base, and I thought I could outrun him, but I was at my gear speed, like 112 knots. And he never saw me. Came right over me. I had to take a dive, came right over me, he got in front of me and landed.
Oh, gee.
And those are the people you have to watch out for at some of these general aviation airports.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just want to share that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah,
There is on the AOPA website, Roger,
yeah,
there is a risk assessment tool program,
okay,
which is basically an electronic version of the PAVE checklist.
okay,
And you go through and you just, before every flight, it's a release kind of situation, an ops release thing like the clearing authority would do. So you become your own clearing authority,
okay,
and you go through this checklist and you answer all the questions. That helps you identify the risks. It doesn't answer whether you should or should not go, but it helps you identify the situations that you have to take into account.
Yeah.
So you can make a more informed decision.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's, just like the FAA says, you're pilot in command. Pilot in command is the one in charge. It comes right down to that. You making your decision as to what you're going to do. If you're by yourself, that's one thing, but if you got passengers, that's another. But remember, even if you're by yourself, you could crash into and kill some people on the ground too. So I think that's enough said. Okay. Next meeting, 17 May. It's just the way. Okay. Don't forget to sign the sheet.
Where's the sign-in sheet?